We have a real animated Michael here tonight, looking at his fish, looking at the spinny fish from up above. And hopefully Dad will help move along a little bit. He's being real animated tonight. And we're going to read to him one of the first books I remember. If I Ran the Zoo. So, you'll see, he's having a lot of fun tonight. We had a big Easter party today. And let's see how this goes. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes, that's just what I do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here are not quite up good enough. You'll see these things in just any old zoo. They're awful old-fashioned. I want something new. So I'd open up each cage, I'd lock every pen, let the animals go and start over again. And somehow or other I think I could find some beasts of much more unusual kind. A 4-footed lion, that's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 on the right. The people will stare and they'll say, what a sight! The zookeeper knew Keeper Gerald quite keen, the gold darndest lion I ever have seen. My new zoo, my McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk. At the strangest old creatures that ever did walk, I'll get for my zoo a new sort of hen, who roosts in another hen's top knot, and then another one roosts in the top knot of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth and upward and onward, gee whiz. Ha! But that's just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me the next day in my zookeeper's hat, coming to zoo with an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised they'll swallow their gum. They'll ask when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that from? His animals have such odd faces. I bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. And that's what they'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you'll have to go places quite out of the way. You'll have to go places no others can get to. You have to go get cold, and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole, where frozen winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt my Sneaglemobile, and bring back a family of what do you know? That's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zombie-Zant, with helpers who wear their eyes at a slant, and capture a fine fluffy bird called a bustard, who only eats custard with sauce made of mustard. And also a very fine beast called a flustered, who only eats mustard with sauce made of custard. I'll catch 'em in caves, I'll catch 'em in brooks. I'll catch 'em in crannies, I'll catch 'em in nooks. If you don't read about 'em in geography books, I'll catch 'em in countries that no one can spell, like Motafa-Poofa-Tafel, in countries like that, and the hunter is clever. He'll hunt up some beasts that you never saw ever. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of jotes, whose feet are like cows, who wear skinny skin coats, and sit down like dogs, but have voices like goats, except they can't sing the very high notes. Oh, and then I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Then people will say, I like that boy heaps. His new zoo McGrew Zoo is growing by leaps. He captured them wild and he captured them meek. He captured them slim and he captured them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week? I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute. I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed, if it weren't for those horns that he has on his head. And speaking of horns that are a bit queer, I'll bring back a family of very odd deer. A father, a mother, 2 sisters, a brothers, whose horns are connected from one to another. Who can tell where they end and who can't tell where they start? Each deer's mighty puzzled, he's never found if his horns are her horns or the other way around. I'll capture them fat, I'll capture them scrawny. I'll capture a scraggly-foot Mulligatawny, a high-stepping animal fast as the wind, from the blistering sands of the deserts of Zend. The beast is a beast that brave a chieftains ride when they want to go fast to find some place to hide. A Muganati-Funi is fine at my zoo, so for a chieftain I'll bring one back too. In the far out west part of the southeast of North Dakota, there lives a very fine animal called the Ayatollah. I'll capture one who's never much finer in the eastern western part of South Carolina. When people see him, they'll say, now that by thunder, this Nuzu Magruzu really is a wonder. Most beasts are quite friendly, but still in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it a hunter can never quite bit. Yeah. The zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a throw, whose legs are all snarled and quite a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooter bugs. I'll go to Africa, the island of Yerkle. I'll bring back a zizzle-sopple, tuffled mazurkle, a kind of canary who's quite a tall throat. His leg's so long that he swallows an oat. For breakfast the first day of April, they say, it has to go down such a very long way to get to his stomach by the 15th of May. A little bit fussy. We turn back on the lights. Want me to continue? I think so. I'll bag a big bug who is very surprised, a feather who has a propeller for rising, and zooming around making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops, and that sort of thing for bugs just the tops. And then I have caught him, and I know next you'll do, I'll go capture a wild tic-tac-toe. With an X that's a win and a 0's that lose, he'll look mighty good in Zoo of McGrews. We might be a little fussy tonight. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket. An 8 Persian prince will carry the basket, and when that dear names, I don't know, so don't ask it. A cave in Cotonou lives a bass called the Natch that no other's been able to catch. He's been there for years in his cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. But I'll coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in a cooker-mobile. Then I'll fix up the dish that is just to his taste, 3 chickens croquets made of library paste. Then sprinkle with peanut shocks and pickled spice, then baked at 600 degrees and then iced. It's a mighty hard cook to cook such a feast, but that's how the Nuzu Magruzu gets beast. I'll go far away to the mountains of Toos, to the river of Noost I'll bring back a Noopsk, and such a sort of thing a McBoosk, who eat rhubarbs and corn on the coofs. Then people will flock to my zoo, and the moose, McGrew they'll say, does that wonderful droops. He hunts with such vim and he funts with such vigor, his Nuzu Magruzu gets bigger and bigger. And speaking of birds, the Russian Paluski, his head skooski, red skooski, belly is blueski, and he'll get them for my name is Zooski Magruski. Then the whole town will gasp, why this boy never sleeps, no keeper that before ever what he keeps. That's no telling what the young fellow will do. And then just to show you, I'll sail to Katroo and bring back a Itchit, a Prep, and a Pooh, a Nurgle, a Nerd, and a Seersucker too. I'll hunt in the jungles a Hypnohungus, and bring back a flock of Hippologobungus. A Bipigonobungus from Hipponomohungus is better than those down in Dippapongadungus. And smarter those in Dippamonangus, and that's why I'll catch 'em in Hipponohungus instead of those in Nungus and Dungus. And people will say that these bips and bounding, that the zookeeper new keeper simply astounding. He travels so far that you think he would crop. And when do you suppose a young fellow will stop? Stop? Well, I should. But I won't stop until I've captured the Phizima Wizima Dill, the world's biggest bird from the island of Gwark. He eats only pine trees and spits out bark. And boy, when I get him back into my park, the whole world will say, young McGrew's made his mark. He's built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses, who have made the greatest of all McGrewses. Wow, they'll all cheer. What's this zoo must be worth? It's the gold darndest zoo on the face of the earth. Yes, that's what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo.